who have also apparently joined up with the BBC. I have learnt that this is via some kind of romance that's going on between a member of this splinter group of Hacked Off and the BBC. I'm making a complaint to Ofcom about them. I'm demanding GPDR be revealed to me. The BBC, I'm suing them for abuse, are ignoring my lawyer. This is the way they rock and roll. They're really quite an evil, dark bunch of people. They really are. They're abusive. They have an agenda, the left-wing woke agenda. Everybody knows this. I was late to the party. I apologise for being obtuse and not realising who they were. Kudos to the people who marched on the BBC shouting out the word paedophile. They're monsters there. They're highly abusive to women and children. They've been highly abusive to me. They're joined up with these other left-wing woke characters from Hacked Off. They're not about you and I. They're not about making the press better. I was a bit of a sucker, and when I went along to meet Graham Johnson in 2016, I was suckered by his talk and got suckered into helping them. 1 second. I got suckered into helping them. Like a fool. There's a lot of foolishness that's gone on my part. I feel ashamed. What can I do? So, this is a statement for Gavin Burroughs' legal team, 8th of August 2023. Paralegal Graham Johnson befriended me back in mid-2016, talked about helping me make a better press. I was a schmuck and an arsehole, and that's not in there. I only had bits and bobs of work and so needed something to do for entertainment purposes. He then offered me a deal that I pass him all my remittances from my days as a private eye stroke journalist, and he would give me £25,000. He told me that would be used for a lawyer, that would be from a lawyer he was working for, and he was on a payroll of £5,000 a month. He encouraged, I think that's going to cook up, I might be wrong. He talked a lot to someone called Hugh. He denied it was Hugh Grant, but later I did, for sure, 100% catch him talking to Hugh Grant. And then when Evan Harris, the MP, and Graham Johnson had lunch at Kew Gardens, it's on tape, boys, had lunch at Kew Gardens, Evan Harris started saying to Graham Johnson, oh, you and Hugh get on very well. And I said, oh, Hugh Grant? And he said, yeah, him and Graham get on really well. And I was like, oh. And Graham looked highly embarrassed because he wanted to keep it from me, knowing that I'm a gossip and a big mouth. So they're buddies, weird buddies, because one has to consider things that Graham Johnson has done in his life. But never mind, who am I to deny a love-in when it's happening? He encouraged me that I'd be helping victims of press injustice. I wanted to help, had not done anything illegal, so could help. I'm going to read that again. I wanted to help, had not done anything illegal, so could help. Around that time, I was working for a private investigations company. I wasn't, as Michael Gillard put it, seeking money from my remittance advisors. I think at the time, I was just lonely. And Graham, I knew Graham from back in the day and wanted to meet up with him for a budding, basically. No, nothing sexual, even though he did make certain comments and lunge. He's probably forgotten that, but it's on tape. Anyway, so going back to those lunches in the French restaurant in Kew, I wasn't there to make money. I suppose, yes, I wanted to help, and I just really wanted just to meet somebody from back in the day. I painfully missed Fleet Street. I have to say and be honest about that. I wanted revenge. I felt bad that I'd worked for the Daily Mail for over a decade, helped them get front pages, was leaned on by them for help, was rung up by their staff, editors, and asked things like, oh, can we borrow your genius? To just be dropped. It's rather like having a boyfriend for a long, long time, and you just assume that you'll always have them and that they will always hold you in high regard because you've not done anything wrong, and suddenly they don't call. You're like, hang on, we watch TV, don't we, every Friday night, and we spend our weekends in bed together. What? And they just act, I think it's called ghosting. They act as if you don't exist. It's what happened to me in 2009. They decided, just didn't want private investigators anymore. But I was a journalist. I'd morphed into being a journalist, proven by my bylines, proven by a staff press pass. And I didn't think of myself as a private investigator. The work I did was certainly not private investigations. Absolutely wasn't. It was journalist stuff. Journalists standing up stories. Private investigators don't do that. They just can't do that. They don't know how to do that. So I had morphed a long, long time ago. I think 1996 I had morphed. And so why did I deserve to get binned? So really, there was a snake of wanting revenge. And although Graham talked about this 25,000, I remember thinking that it was horseshit, that he just wanted these remittance advices and didn't have that money. Again, stupidity on my part. He did have that money because these very rich lawyers were backing him. I believe Gunnar Cook, maybe I'm wrong, but certainly they gave Gavin Burrows loads of money. But I stupidly imagined that Graham didn't have it, and so didn't really want it, and got stuck into helping them for free. People have pointed out that you don't have money and you're poor because you never ask for money and you give away things. I do expect fairness from individuals, but when you're dealing with greedy, grabby individuals, you don't really get it. I want to go back to the line. I wanted to help. I had not done anything illegal, so could help. Now, going back to the likes of Glenmore Care, going back to John Boyle, going back to all of those PIs who didn't know any better. Glenmore Care doesn't know any better. He just doesn't. I did know better. I've been in the business since age 16. Since age 16, I had been straight out of care, from care actually, into a private detective agency, which all sounds very Nikita, but it's not Nikita because they just use you to just cozy up to guys, really. They want young blondes who don't care about getting beaten up, and and then you just get made to do undercover work, which was, Sean Moss from the BBC, my speciality. Yes, I spent decades nearly getting beaten up, a lot of the times really close to the edge, certainly threatened, certainly grabbed round the throat, certainly with somebody pulled out a gun on me when I was round the house and I was spying on them. Someone in St Margaret's actually, and coincidentally enough, I ended up living there years later when I was bringing up my child. He lived in a mansion in St Margaret's and pulled out a gun on me, asking me, are you sure you who you're saying you are? So this is my speciality for years, but all this has been overwritten now by these boys and their tight little drain pipes because they're threatened by me. They don't like it that I was a kick-ass female. It scares them somehow. But you can't rewrite my history, boys, because I'll be shouting it from the goddamn rooftops. And I can shout louder than you guys. So, it's fun when people try and demonize you. They really do. You've got to be clever. You've got to have a higher IQ, boys. And the way you're doing it, it's not really washing. You've got a guy who professes to be a bit of a gangster and knows, like, oh, I know loads of people from Liverpool and all the hard guys and all the guys up there. And, well, I know it. I've had some of the hardest ones on my radio show. You don't know him. why can't I remember his name? That very gorgeous guy who, if I was 20, I would be in Liverpool right now knocking on his door. Why can't I remember his name? Anyway, all the ones he knows, they're all old now. So, but he professes he knows all these, and yet apparently I threatened him and he was terrified. What? I mean, this is how they fight, and if this is how you fight, you're not going to get very far, because it's very silly. It's very silly fighting. Anyway, going back to why I could help him and why I was doing it. I had nothing better to do. I think it was sheer loneliness I was going to meet him. He's quite amusing, Johnson. I would say he is good company. I was with him all summer. Bruce Goodison will testify. James Hanning will testify, hopefully, that we were in the Ivy and the Picture and Piano all last summer. And I will give it to Graham Johnson. He's never boring. He's always good company. And so that was why I was meeting him, really, just for company. I wasn't being bribed. I know Michael Gillard, God bless him, he's a very good journalist and certainly writes like Charles Dickens. I mean, brilliant writer. He said that I knew how much they were worth. I didn't. I had literally thousands of these remittances. I didn't know how much they were worth. And I'm not greedy for money as long as I can pay the rent and have my pasta and tuna, I'm okay, which again is a failing I see now, is stupidity. And I don't like it in myself that I've been like that, because now I've ended up in a hole. But it doesn't matter, I'm sure prayer will get me out of the hole. So going back to Johnson, I could help him because I knew I had been in the industry. I had been, before I became a journalist, in the private investigations industry for, oh God, how many years? Like decades. And I had, because I got bored very easily, I dotted around to nearly every high up investigation agency in London. The likes of Argan, Carrot2, Kroll, K2, and all the ones that all the boys talked about. You know, you'd go to an agency, you'd get the MI5 officers like Gary Watkinson, and you'd listen, you'd go drinking with them, and you'd find out what they wanted. And they always want to work for Hacklight. And so you'd think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try and get in there. And it was always easier for a busty blonde, to go and to Hacklight and say, can I help you in any way? I've done 10 years of undercover work. They would hire you, but they wouldn't necessarily hire Gary Watkinson, even though he'd worked for MI5. So this is how I managed to dot around. There weren't any women. I didn't know of any women in the industry. It was pure men only. So I had the edge. And as the years rolled on, I did encounter ex-police officer, MI6 women, but mostly it's men. Mostly it's men. I would say 95%. It's probably changed now, but back in the day it was all men. And so I had seen some of these guys. They were the very posh ones. They were the very gangster ones. My favourite agency, I suppose, was Barry Trigwell's. He had just come out of prison for murdering somebody, and coincidentally knew Jonathan Rees, was round the corner from Jonathan Rees, and there was that scandal with Daniel Morgan, and they were very dark. Stuart Withers, never worked for Ian Withers at all. You picked one or the other because they weren't speaking to each other. I worked for Stuart, and they had really interesting work come through the door. And we were firebombed once. We were firebombed. They were very... I remember Barry Trigwell, he was working on a case. I think I was doing it. And I went to him and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to come up with a result from this. He said, how long have you been working on it? I said, well, all week. And he said, you kidding? They've just paid this, I think it was $5,000 they paid. I thought it was a lot of money, and I thought they certainly deserved a result for £5,000. I mean, I was going to work on until I got a result. I was going to him to get, another brain thinking about it. And he picked up the phone, rang the person. He went, give us some more money, write us another check, or we're finished now. We've worked on it a week. Slammed the phone down. They intrigued me, I think, because I'm not very good at standing up for myself. I'm not very good at asking for money. I'm not very good at being like they were. And there were other agencies around who would get raided by the tax office for making dodgy calls. There were people that got a knock through ringing banks to try and get money. You quickly learn that data thievery, okay, which is something like that, where you get data from a computer, you quickly learn that it's highly illegal, yeah? It's highly illegal and risks at any point in any time getting busted and dragged off with handcuffs. And I saw it happen. And I thought, like, fuck, am I gonna ever get caught in that way? And I was too scared to go down that avenue. Now, there was another avenue you could go down with asking just questions and sometimes using pretext, but nothing illegal. And so, according to Graham Johnson, if you ring up anybody in any way and say anything that's a lie, it is illegal. Is it really? Well, then journalists all through Fleet Street need to come forward, because I don't think there was anybody that would ring up anybody and say they were from a newspaper when they worked for the tabloids, unless they were the Daily Mail, and of course they don't mind because, they have to act that way, and the broadsheets, the Guardian, the Times. But the tabloids, they didn't behave in that way because everybody hated the tabloids. So this is the avenue I decided to go down, and it also took brains. And I remember the turning point for realizing that I would never have to go down the avenue of doing data thieving and risk getting dragged off, when I did a big investigation for Barry on a gang. And I wrote down all the details of them, found out bits about each member, wrote a long report, really long, and thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I passed it to Barry. He went up, running upstairs to Stuart. I thought, oh shit, is it wrong? And they called me up, and Stuart went, this is brilliant, this is world class. And I got moved into my own office and got the title Senior Investigator. And then I said I was going to leave because I wanted to be a novelist. And Stuart said, I'm not saying this agency is dependent on you, but if you leave, I'll break both your legs. And I started laughing because I grew up in care with like really sort of tough guys straight out of Borstal, and I was used to that kind of talk. My boyfriends used to talk to me like that, so I just laughed. Thinking back now, he probably meant it. And I ended up staying for a while. I didn't automatically pissed off. I suppose it was being needed, but with me, honey works a lot nicer than a threat. I noted I'd been threatened. I didn't do any more good work for them. I thought, fuck you, Stuart. And yeah, I did other things to get my revenge. I don't like being spoken to like that. I'm just getting a flashback of what actually went on there. It all got very dark. I just get angry sometimes when I am treated in bad ways. Okay, but I knew about data thievery. Now, some people went into it. John Boyle went into it. That's why he lives in a £10 million mansion. I live in rented temporary accommodation with black mold and mice. So it's like there's a world away, peoples. But this is what these people are trying to accuse me of. This is what the splinter group have hacked off as trying to accuse me of being a John Boyle character. Oh, boys, I'd have a lot more money if I was that kind of character. And so there's a lot of money in it. Like Lloyd from TDI, apparently, so he's off in America. There's a lot of money in that kind of thing. And but you have to be clever. You have to keep one step ahead of the law. Now, John Boyle was going to be raided once. He got a tip-off by friends. They always have cop friends. He got a tip-off by the cops, and he changed all his hard drives in his computers. So these people often have, but you know, there are decent people that have friends that are cops. For instance, I work for Derby Associates, ex CID detectives, DSs, and Roger and Ken. They had friends who were in the cops also, and they were a good agency. So. You know, obviously, if you are a cop, you've come out of it, then, you know, they're not all bent. But, so this is what John does. But I thought to myself, we had dinner one time. I mean, you know, we went out for a long while. And I remember we had dinner and he said that he kept a gun. And I said, why would you keep a gun? And he said, to shoot myself with. And I looked at him across the table. And I said, what do you mean? I thought, how can you be depressed? Your money bags. And he said, well, if I get cancer or I'm going to shoot myself. And I looked at him and I thought, all your money you have, all your big estate, doesn't mean anything, does it? And I thought to myself, it's because you've earned it through crime, because you've earned it through data thieving, it doesn't mean anything. So you've got that gun because you know if you have hardship and, you know, health, you can't really, money can't buy your way out of that. It's pain, it's life pain. He's got a big swimming pool and a big £10 million estate with gated all the way around it. Operation Wheating couldn't even get through the gate. So there's a pool there. There's an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. And it's Georgian as well. It's gorgeous. So, and he also has an antique shop. So, he doesn't need to run. So he knew deep down. That's why he won't shoot himself if he got cancer, because he knew that he can't take pain. Now, we're all supposed to be taking pain. We're supposed to, it's part of life. It changes us. It teaches us our shape. It's there every day. And the strong man, the one that everyone else venerates, is the man who's the ascetic, who feels the pain, who says, come on then, life, and deals with it in an adult, mature way. And but he, in his swimming pool and fine wines, hasn't dealt with pain. So he's thinking, what pain will get me? Maybe ill health. I'm not going to have that. I'm going to shoot myself. And I just thought it's because he hasn't felt the pain of life. He hasn't felt the misery of living in rented accommodation. He hasn't felt the misery of struggling. He hasn't felt the misery of day-to-day monotony, doing a job you don't like, being bossed around by others. He has lorded it up like a lord, and no pain there. So he's like, oh, pain might find me though, but then I'll shoot myself. I've got complete control over life. But nobody has control over life. So this is where I thought to myself, Christine, you took the right path. There I was, living in a studio flat, but I just thought you took the right path. And I stuck to this. And when I went to work for the press, I knew that what they used to do was hire a private investigator for about 3 or 4 years, then turn them over and keep a file on them and pass it to the police. They did that on a guy called Paul. I think he's recently gone to court. Paul Hawkes. They did it on him. I'm pretty sure it was him. And who else did they do this on? They did it on a lot of people. I think they even tried to screw over Stuart Withers It's hilarious. He fell for it. And of course, when I entered Fleet Street, not only was I armed with that knowledge, and one time I said to Barry, why don't we work for the press? That'll be fun. And he went, we don't work for scum like that. And I said, but why? We just, yes, as scum, but we're working for them. And he said, no. He said, do you know why? And I said, tell me, Barry, enlighten me. He said, it's what they do with what we dig up for them. I said, well, how do you mean? He said, well, you find something out, yeah, and they're like, yeah, they put it on the front page, and the person they've written about legally is allowed to come to them and say, bitches, how do you find that out? And then they've got to say, well, that was Barry Trigwell. Oh, that was Christine Hart. He said, so what is it if you work for them? It's fucking dangerous. So I don't work for those scum. And I thought, oh, I see. And that stayed with me. Didn't forget it. Didn't suddenly become Glyn Mulcair. And not only was I armed with that, but I also had the Phil Hall experience, the lying of Phil Hall, the using me for sex afterwards, and the whole Phil Hall experience of how mendacious the male journalists were. So I thought, hang on, I made a decision that I would leave Barry, I would set up in a flat, and I would work for the press, because I want to be a journalist. And I'd known Phil Hall, and I thought, I'm just as clever as he is, and I'll get in by being a private investigator, but I'm not going to let them fuck me, yeah? So I thought, how do I do it? And I thought, I know, I'll stick to everything legal, but I won't be telling them I'm sticking to anything illegal. That way, they'll think, ooh, wonder how she got that. Was it some kind of special illegal stuff? But it wouldn't be. So when they got their little fire and their little drain pipes, they went running off to the police. I'll be able to say, sorry, actually didn't do what they thought I'd been doing. This is how I got that result for them. And it would also protect against any kind of somebody you've written a story about saying, how did you find that out? She found that. Well, I found that out because of that. So, hey, it's not illegal. So I kept my arse covered, as they call it, knowing I was entering a den of vipers. Now, it got to the point of I met up with Greg Miskew in the Old Rose. It wasn't the Old Rose, it was a pub opposite for some reason. And I said that I wanted to go and do a shift for the Sunday Mirror. And he said, oh, you can't do that, you work for me. And I had been working for the Sunday Mirror and the Mail and the Times, actually. He didn't know any of that. And he said, if you work for anybody else, I'll throw you to the police. And he threw his whiskey glass against the wall. And then he said, I own you. And I looked at him and I thought, what? You threatening me with the police? He goes, yeah, all your work, he said, I've kept recordings and tapes. So funny. And I looked at him and I laughed. I just laughed and I walked out. And I wasn't scared. Why wasn't I scared? Because I knew, and I'd never, ever, ever, ever done anything illegal for him, because I didn't trust him as far. And this is somebody who I was like personally involved with, who I snogged at the Christmas party, had come round my flat again and again, and I guess I would call him a friend. I at the time, I certainly thought him as my best friend, saying to me, I'm going to chuck you to the police. Oh, and he meant it as well. He meant it. So that was very early on. That was late 90s. Late 90s. He did that. I went round, told everyone. Then I thought, oh, well done, Christine. You went round telling everyone, and they're like, well, hang on, don't you do anything illegal? No, bitches, I actually don't. I just, do anything that you could do. So that was, kind of shot myself in the foot. But it didn't really matter, because in came phone hacking, and the work I was doing for the press was standing up stories. So it was actually journalistic. It's nothing to do with private investigations. That stopped early 90s. And I was standing up stories 100% standing up stories. In the middle of standing up stories, they would ask you to do something illegal. So that was what you had to weave around. I have to accept payment for it? Well, yes, because then you wouldn't have got the standing up stories. And by that time, I thought, I'm a motherfucker journalist here. I've got my foot into Fleet Street. I'm getting my bylines in the paper. Nobody's going to push me out here. And it was bullying. If somebody asks you to do something illegal, they're actually bullying you because you're risking prison for them. Phone hacking came in. John Boyle bought it in. I bought in John Boyle. John Boyle bought phone hacking. It pushed me out. I went to live in Belfast and worked for the Sunday Times, where I wrote about the Real IRA and the UDA. Got my bylines in the Sunday Times. Sometimes I didn't for doing the work. I also worked for the Sunday Times magazine, and I was happy. Then I got pregnant, and I wanted to come back here. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have bought a house in Belfast. I think I should have stayed working for Liam Clark and built my skill set and built my reputation. Stupid to come back. Really stupid. So came back, bought a house here, and bought a house in a poor area. And of course, it didn't go up in value for the next 8 years. 8 years I lived somewhere, didn't go up anything in value. And when I sold it at a loss. That must be a world record. And then I went into rented, and then I lost my job because of the phone hacking scandal. So when I met with Johnson, I was pretty bitter because I'd literally done nothing wrong. And literally, I deserved to be kept on as a journalist. I was a journalist. All the bylines in the Sunday Times proves it. I was out in Belfast, well known as a journalist. I was the only journalist that the Real IRA let near them. I was the only journalist that the UDA, John White, let near him. When he was on the run, I got him on the front page of the Sunday Times. And even the Sunday Times said, you can't do it, the BBC are after him. So I was a better journalist than those at the BBC, Sean Moss. But still, I don't get called a journalist by them. They don't feel like it. They don't have to. They can jizz on me. Why not jizz? You know, that's what they do. They abuse. So it doesn't matter. I used to get really upset, really depressed, and cry so much that I had pushed myself in my life, done a lot, hadn't focused on money, so I ended up without money. I'm not money-minded. Ended up in poverty. And it broke me, that losing the mail. It broke me. It destroyed me. It destroyed me. I couldn't get up again. And people like Paul, my friend Paul, ex-friend, says, that broke you, as if like it's, you weak bastard, you know. But I had done this private investigations work, going undercover, risking my life with men, and it's serious, you know, to get some guy rich as fuck wheedle your way because you want to look around the house to look for paperwork and stuff like that. And you know, I mean, it's hard work, and I was never remunerated properly for it. And it's hard. And I thought, I want to be a journalist. When the Ian Brady thing struck and I met Phil Hall and we became lovers, if you can call it that, I thought, this is what I want to do with my life. And I've worked all my life, really worked all my life. It was weird. I was talking to someone the other day. We were walking past mansions, and I said, I really wish I had a house, you know, big, small, you know, caravan. Just somewhere so you know you won't ever be on the street. And they said, but these people have worked for it. And I thought, you fucking bastard. I've done nothing bar work. I just haven't focused on money. I haven't thought of it. And I always thought that I never fucked up. I never hurt my employees. I never embarrassed them. Never did anything wrong. that I would always have work. So stupid, really, because things don't really happen that way. So I was really upset in 2009 when the mail dropped me, and I suppose it was this that led me to engaging with Graham. Plus, it was I wanted to go out and I wanted to go out. I wanted to meet somebody. I wanted to, feel social. I didn't have much of a social life. But I remember this working in me, this need, this pain, this. I was a journalist, and they took it away from me. They just literally took it away. I mean, I was doing. Now and again, I was writing books. I'd written Searching for Daddy, 2008. I was actually providing for myself. I got a good advance on that. Taxman took a third of it, but we were still living on that. Then I wrote my other book, In for the Kill. So I was functioning as a freelance writer and a freelance journalist. I was doing some stories, getting printed in the Sunday Express on Jeremy Bamba. So I was a working writer, actually. But it's very hard to survive in that way. You need to be given stories to work on. And I wasn't. I was persona non grata because of this phone hacking nonsense. And I didn't even hear about it till one time, I think it was in 2010, when I was having dinner with Greg Miskew. And I said, I think that my phone was, my answer messages. I said, can that guy Glenn Mulcair do that? So I knew he was working for the press. And he went, of course he can. That's when I found out about it. I just thought, how stupid. God, if only Barry was dead by then. He was bludgeoned to death in his bath by South Africans. And I remember thinking, if only Barry knew that some asshole had gone and brought journalists, of all people, something like that. And John Boyle had done it. I mean, bloody hell. To have a £10 million gaff with an outdoor swimming pool and an indoor swimming pool, and to sit there in your golden throne and imagine that it's a good idea to bring the boys of the, literally they are boys, bring the boys of the press a trick like that. I mean, what is going on in the old brain, really? I mean, it's a sinful, it's so sinful, because they'd use it to hurt people. It's really sinful. But he did that, and he's gotten away with it. No one mentions him because he's moneyed up, lawyered, barristered up. Don't hear David Sherborne mention his name. It's a bit like the Wimbledon crash. 2 children were killed, but no mention of the woman that did it. So, yeah, one rule for the rich, one rule for the poor. So John isn't mentioned. He's the brainchild of phone hacking, something that's rebounded on society, even all around the world, and yet his name is never mentioned. They just mention his little wee office boy, Glenn Mulcair, who didn't know whether it's night or day. Yeah, his name John's isn't mentioned. Not even profiled. I thought Nick Davis was going to do something on him, but no. Anyway, I've talked about that before. I don't want to ramble on about the same things. So going back to feeling upset and feeling that I wanted to do something. Now, okay, you're sitting there with Johnson, who's friends with Evan Harris, met with him now, and his lawyer. Now, you can't enter into a legal thing with people. And I guess I wanted to get my own back, really. I want to get my own back on the boyfriend that had dumped me, so to speak. And I knew that I hadn't done anything illegal. But I thought, well, they're going to say, there was all this stuff that I was asked to do and went through the motions of, but didn't do. So I explained all this. I'm guessing they didn't believe me, or perhaps didn't want to, or maybe they just thought, we can fuck you anyway. So it took to this Graham saying, meeting me in the Petersham nurseries, etc., saying, or I'm taping you, talk for the tape, and this kind of stuff. So I was sitting there saying stuff that actually was a load of old guff for his tape. I mean, and it was wrong, really, it was wrong. It was against the male. I wasn't bribed to say it. I just said it in hate, said it in a kind of fatal attraction way, that I just wanted to fuck them. I thought, why did you drop me? I didn't do anything, I valued working for you, your, respectable newspaper. I even valued working for the Mail more than the Sunday Times. I think that's because I always thought Liam Clark was I liked him, but I always thought he was a bit of I don't know. I liked him a lot, but he took me to a UDA funeral, and right at the front near the coffin, we were reporters. Did we need to walk through a crowd of thousands of rabid Protestants? I'm a Catholic. Right to the coffin of a UDA commander as they're firing round it, when there's Michael Stone and all that, and hello, Michael. I mean, he's at a fucking funeral. Now is not the time to say, oh, I'm from the Sunday Times. I mean, fuck. He even took one of their sandwiches when they were passing it round. I just thought, why are we here? And I literally had this wallet thing, this bullet case given to me by one of the real IRA commanders, a original official IRA like bullet case from 1917, and it was in my fucking handbag. And I started to think about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought I was going to pass out. And as I looked up, there was all these men, oh God, there was so many on these hills, all looking down at this little council estate where this freaking coffin was laid outside. And I started to think then about Lenny Murphy. I just thought, oh God, oh God. I thought, they're going to kill me. They're just going to chop me up in little bits. And I thought maybe I should ask to go to the toilet in their little council house and take out this. It had IRA written all over it. Official IRA, yada yada, carved into it. It was nice. No, I mean nice in that it was an antique. So I thought maybe I should stuff it behind their toilet or something. Oh God, imagine getting caught doing something like that. And then I thought, well, shall I just drop it on the ground? Oh God, I'm glad I didn't drop it on the ground. I decided to leave it in my handbag. And I just hoped that they wouldn't, take us and search us. It's a normal thing that they would do, search. And the IRA search as well, and all that shit that they do. Put something over your head to take you from somewhere to somewhere. And I just saw that all happening, which didn't matter so much when it was the IRA, because I'm a Catholic. But the others are Protestant. So I thought, oh God, they're going to start peeling off my skin, and God, it was horrible. So he brought me into that. So I thought, I mean, I liked him and all, but I thought, is there a bit of schmuckery going on there? So I more respected the male because they seemed to have intelligence that seemed above that. So I took part in this conspiracy to attack the Daily Mail, and it involved Johnson. It involved him saying, say this for the tape, and then I would come and make out I'd just arrived and say, hi, how are you, and did you do this? Oh yes, and all this shit. And also, the dealing with the BBC. It was all just an attack on the Mail. And I feel ashamed now I got involved in it, and especially got involved in it in a kind of fatal attraction way, the boyfriend that ghosted me, because that's how it kind of felt. And really, I think because I was working for men mostly, I had them almost like pretend boyfriends, there I was, in the later years, a single mother, and there was no man supporting me. So when a man rings, an editor from the Mail, and, they're going to give you work and they're going to pay for it, you feel like, oh, there's a man supporting me, because it wasn't, I can do investigations off the cuff. I'm really, really good at it, and I don't have to break a sweat. So I enjoy it. It gives me energy. And so, yeah, I just enjoyed it. It gave me energy. It gave me support. It made me feel I wasn't abandoned. It gave me pride. It stroked my ego because they called me a genius. And just to take that away, especially when I had a child to bring up, it killed me. Just killed me. Really did. I just didn't get up from that after. And people say maybe it was losing the son. Fuck the sun. Hate the sun. Really hated working for them. It's like whenever they rung me, I used to hold my nose and just think, oh, just don't like the sun. But the mail offered respectability, and so I did. And just to have that ripped away for no reason, done nothing wrong. It felt bad, it felt wrong, and so I did. I did enter into this conspiracy with this splinter group of hacked off, and then I decided to not go ahead with it. I can't remember when it was. Oh, I do remember when it was. It was the sandwich affair. It was when it's weird because there was all these little landmarks, and Michael Gillard, the journalist, asked me, "Why did you keep dealing with them after this?" And it's strange because when you've been abused as a child, you put up with abusive people, and you you don't register it. You can overlook it. You feel it. You feel the punch. You roll the punch, and then you get up again and sort of carry on dealing with them because you've been in a family that have treated you like that. So you're used to being punched and then getting back up and then dealing with them. It's strange, but people that haven't been abused, they don't understand it. They can't get their heads around it. They're like, "Oh, but why did you carry on dealing with them? They just burgled you." Well, because I'm used to dealing with people like that. So, plus growing up in care makes you like that. I mean, you don't have anything. I had all my stuff nicked off me in care. You go down for your dinner, and if you don't grab the food, you're just left with the potatoes or the chips. You can't get anything else. So I was used to that kind of activity. So I still went to meet them in this hotel, the Sheraton, and there was Evan Harris, his lawyer, who's now no longer his lawyer. I spoke to him fairly recently, no longer working for him. I'm going to leave him out of it. And so him, Johnson. Anyway, because my son was late for school that day, I got there an hour late and traffic was bad. But I was going to sign this contract to give me this money. It had now gone down to 16 grand. I didn't believe I'd get any of it at all. So that was a farce. I know Michael, again, the journalist, has said, "Oh, that's what I wanted." I didn't actually. So we got to. I didn't think I didn't. I was literally out for revenge. I wasn't thinking about the money at all. I didn't believe they'd give it to me, and indeed they didn't. I'm good at premonitions. I'm good at seeing. I am a seer, and I've got spirit guides, and I know when things are going to happen. I knew I wasn't going to get that money off them. Anyway, went along, and my son was sick, and he didn't have time for breakfast. By the time we got there, he was very hungry, and I said to Graham Johnson, "Arthur needs a sandwich." Now, it's not me needs a sandwich. Arthur needs a sandwich. He needed it straight away. He was hungry. And he went, "No, it's too expensive here." I couldn't believe that. And that was when I thought, nah, fuck you people. I can be abused. I can be burgled. You can nick all my tech, 5 grand's worth of stuff. But what you can't do is abuse my child. And we got back, and I said, grand for it. I put it in this tin bathtub we had. I poured petrol over it and we lit it and we danced around it. True, no word of a lie. I swear on my son's life, this is what we did. It's what we did. We were doing that whoa, 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 like that. And I said to him, fuck those people. And he goes, but why burn it? And I said, because I'd be a schmuck. I'll wake up next morning and carry on dealing with them. This way I can't. And so they had stolen. In the burglary, lots were nicked, but there was lots left. I mean, there was literally, I'd worked for free for all those decades. So obviously there was loads of remittance advices. So yeah, there was so many burned, but I still had some. Still to this day, I have them left. I mean, there was literally boxes full. And then I stopped dealing with them. And then it was maybe during the COVID or something like that, James Hanning came into my life. And that was a whole different story. I'm going to carry on reading. I hope I'm not boring everybody. Okay, he told me they would be used for a lawyer he was working for, and he was on a payroll of $5,000 a month. I wanted to help. I had not done anything illegal, so I could help. Now, does John Boyle ever help with anything like that? No. Why? Because you'd go off to prison. You can't go and say, oh, I did this. I mean, literally. So I could help because I hadn't done anything wrong. Okay. I came into the press as one of their victims. Evan Harris has never suggested helping me. Yeah, we'll fight for this victim, that victim. They wheeled out that blonde girl, that model. Now, she, I believe, was Phil Hall's victim. Now, I was Phil Hall's victim. She could get both together and get compensation from that, but they don't care. Okay. Graham Johnson then told me I must hand him 20 Daily Mail remittances, and that would be my surety to him. I then had lunch with Graham Johnson, paralegal Evan Harris, and my then 13-year-old son. Evan told me over lunch, you can help us the nice way or the nasty way. I think that was very crass, because clearly if I'm sitting there eating food, I'm going to help. This is before the burglary. I have this on tape, as journalist Sylvia Jones told me to tape Evan. The tape is not at my home. Wanted to make another point then. Oh yeah, Sylvia Jones around that time said to me, you're going to be burgled. Is she a psychic? She have a crystal ball? I was burgled 2 weeks after she had the premonition that I was going to get burgled and that I wouldn't be paid $25,000. Okay, carrying on. And this is a house that Evan paid for me. The Riverside House, commonly known as the Riverside House. I was put in there and I was burgled from there. But why? Why pay someone $25,000 when you can just go and take it because there's a woman and a little child? I think I'd do it myself even. Anyway, carrying on. Stupid burglars though, because they should have made it look like a proper burglary. There was a vintage silver watch, Gucci, on the side and a gold bracelet. They didn't take either. I mean, if you're gonna, what the fuck? Never mind. My son heard everything and was very upset. It was unnecessary, as clearly I was helping Evan. It was a petty, evil, weak, nasty threat to a single mother and her child. He then told me to meet his lawyer, who I shall leave out, but who said to me he knew of a woman who had cocaine planted on her when she didn't cooperate. I felt uncomfortable, as I knew he knew Jonathan Rees, who was jailed for doing this. I believe I was threatened with Rees. Rees wouldn't have upped and done that for them anyway. I was then recently told by Gavin Burrows that Johnson had boasted to him he knew a northern crew who would plant cocaine on women. Burrows was also burgled for his tech twice. Apparently, he said, Johnson knows teams again in Liverpool that come down and do the burglaries. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be all flushed out in court. I handed them to him. I received a signed agreement. Evan then put the price down to $16,000. It was signed by Evan Harris. Evan then gave me $5,000 for the rental deposit out of his own bank account for the Riverside home in Windsor. The home was a log cabin on the river in Windsor, and it even had a boat my son would row out in. was right on the river, literally the garden. Bang, there was the river, Thames. On the second week of moving in, just me, my 13-year-old son, I had a burglary, and my remittances I was going to sell to him in Evan House were stolen. My laptop was stolen, an old Dell laptop, and a Canon camera. The burglary robbed me of a total of 5k, which is the amount that had been given to me. I broke off contact with them after the sandwich incident. I then received threats by Graham Johnson. Oh, and I threatened him. I then received threats by Johnson. He was going to come down and kick my door down to get the Daily Mail remittances that I had left. Now, I'm not scared of him threatening me. My son heard, he was upset. And also the headmistress, because we were in his school at the time. It's quite amusing. It was on speakerphone. I wasn't scared of him. I thought, come on then, come down. But apparently he's scared of me. So I'm not scared of him, but he's scared of me. How does that work? I reported this to the Windsor CID officer who was investigating the burglary. She was a blonde woman. With the burglary, my son was at 13 and we were alone in the Riverside house. He developed a fear of Graham Johnson and another burglary because the CID officer, dusting for fingerprints, said that they had come in overnight. My son heard a great thing to say in front of a child. I then told Graham Johnson I was now living with a man. What else can you do? I sent a photo of a man called Sean, who was just a friend of mine. I wasn't living with him anyway. He now goes around saying that this is a threat because this man happens to look tough. Well, it wasn't a threat. This was a woman at her wit's end trying to keep her child feeling safe and dissuade Graham Johnson from coming round because I still had the Daily Mail remittances. Listen, reader, they're worth about $1 million apiece to these people. Anyway, so this is how they lose their temper. Oh, you little white working class slag. You're standing in the way of £1 million. No way we're going to let a working class slag stand in our way. We'll kick the door down, you bitch. Yeah, but I stopped them. That's why the anger. That's why he lies and says, oh, I threatened him. And he, this is, I was helping them. I was continuing helping them until I was abused so much. I could no longer help them because if you have followed the story, I hadn't fallen in love with the Daily Mail again. I was still this rejected female. I still wanted to act out my fatal attraction role on the Daily Mail. They were stopping me, thwarting me by punching me so hard. Yeah, you best help us, you fucking bitch. I am, though. I'm sitting here having lemon tart with you. We're going to kick your door down. But I agreed to meet you for lunch, though, Graham. I mean, it's so weird and crazy. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's literally Carry On Gangster. It's Carry On Private Investigations. Anyway, carrying on. Around 2019, I began to see things online on his blog called Byline, calling me names. I was an NUJ registered and much byline journalist. I was also a well-published author published by Hodder and Stoughton and a Sunday Times best-selling author as it got to 15 in the charts. It was about my child abuse and it was a misery memoir. Johnson was leaving all this out, that I was a bona fide journalist on Fleet Street and an author. This upset me very much. On Fleet Street, I was bullied after some of the tabloid hacks found out I was a patient at the Priory. I went to the Priory to try and unearth stuff about my childhood. I'd had the sexual abuse, I'd had the violence. It was lodged somewhere in my mind. I knew this because I was acting out sexually, and I wanted total recall of events. Like not just flash-ins, not just a memory, but total recall. I want to relive it. I believe by reliving it, I could heal. So I went to the Priory for a long time, doing EMDR, having hypnotherapy, trying to get at it. And did they get at it? No, they didn't get at it. During this time, I was harassed by tabloid hacks, because I was out partying with them, drinking with them, dating some of them, they would harass me. Oh, did you see this one, that one in the Priory? Oh, check it out for us. I had no alternative but to pretend to do that. Did I do it? No. I told Mark Collins that I was asked to do it, and he said, just take their money then. Now, this is in between doing normal work, so I decided just to do that when they asked me, because I won't be bullied. Now, I told this to the BBC. They, because they wanted me to admit to this Sienna Miller thing that Lloyd had done, didn't work for them. No, they didn't want the truth. They wanted to wheel me out after portraying Sienna Miller as a victim, which actually was absolutely pathetic. Don't they realise that young girls watch that and they would love to be packed? And they even showed a flash in of her walking down the street in a great dress, being packed, doing the whole hands up. No, don't they realise that this is young girls' fantasy? So stupid. The IQ levels involved in this are shocking. So they want to wheel me out as someone that did that. I would never do something like that. There's nothing wrong with my IQ points. It was this Lloyd, and Johnson apparently knew, and it was said to him. Now, I don't know if it was said by Brooks or by him, but this Lloyd guy, this West Indian guy, was told, don't worry, your name will be kept out of it. I'm guessing it was probably the BBC who said that, knowing the way they behave, which is racism, 100% racism. But they're like that, the BBC. Johnson was narrowing down my life to an issue I'd been bullied over. I was a well-known journalist. It upset me greatly. I'd worked very hard on Fleet Street to become a journalist. I'd no rest or bother with marriage or a social life. Work was my life. It was something I, as a child who had grown up in care, raped and abused, was very proud of. I'd pushed myself working weekends non-stop. I had not married over it. I was devoted to journalism. I eventually made it when I was the only person to interview the real IRA. I was headhunted by Liam Clark of the Sunday Times and got my byline many times on the front pages of the Sunday Times. Some are attached. There's plenty that aren't attached. I published a misery memoir. God, I've gone on and said that. I'm just about to legally request full disclosure of all emails pertaining to me from the BBC. Blah, 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 blah. Then I've kind of repeated myself. It's actually 21. In 2021, the Eton educator James Hanning entered my life and saying he wanted to write my life story. I went to the Ivy restaurant and Graham was there. Well, I knew he was going to be there. He's recently said I didn't help him, that in response to requests to help him, I had threatened and abused him. Yet there we were over pudding and he was spooning my dessert. Yep. I've got it on tape, so... over dinner, Graham said, over dinner at the Ivy, he said he would publish my book on his publishing company called Yellow Press if I sold him and signed over my life rights. I've since found out that Netflix want to do a series on private investigators who work for the press. Presumably, they will have to approach both Gavin Burrows and I and offer payment for that. Surely, since I'm borderline homeless, that would be great. I might be able to buy a caravan with it. Haven't heard from them, but it sticks in my craw that somebody would say they want my life rights, knowing they had Netflix and been speaking to Netflix, knowing that they want to make this program and was trying to get somebody in poverty while they were sitting there in a £2 million mansion, was trying to get all they had. Sign over your life rights to me. Yeah, I mean, who does that? Who does it? Who actually does that? Honestly, Graham, do you really think that you would benefit from that money? Are you that stupid? Are you that stupid? This is Okay, there's a war at the moment. Okay, a war in the heavens. It's a frequency war, okay? Frequency. Understand what that means, frequency, energy. You can't just do shit like that and think, yeah, I've got loads of good energy now. You got bad energy. It's bad energy. It's just going to cause you pain. Do you understand? You can't do that. You can't rob from somebody that's on the floor and, well, you're in a £2 million mansion in I won't repeat where you live, but I know your address, but I won't say it on air, obviously. You can't do that. Apparently it's quite lush, balconies built on it, loads of cameras, protection, because you think everyone wants to get you. So you're going to do that while I'm in poverty and fear life on the streets every day. Every day I wake up and I'm in fear. I'm in fear, totally, of life. And so you were sitting there with a £2 million house and you were trying to get me to sign over my life rights. My life rights. All I have, really. The story of things, events in my life. Luckily, because I know about the serial killers, Ian Brady and Kenneth Bianchi, that it's worth more. I mean, what if they hadn't been there? I would have just thought, well, my life's of no interest. I'd have signed the dotted line. I don't know how you can sleep at nights doing that to people. So you sat there spooning my pudding and absolutely hating me, rooking me, as they call it. They call it rooking. I rooked her. Yeah, I rooked her. I did a good guy. Really, you rooked me. Yeah. It's also working class, isn't it, really, I mean, I'm working class, you're working class, but we don't have to descend to the lowest levels of our class. But certainly here it is going on. But no, maybe it's a middle class thing to do. Maybe, I think probably it is to, I can't believe. And James Hanning, how much did he know about this? Was he really going to write a book about me? Well, I doubted it. He's written a book about David Cameron. So, David Cameron and me. What parallels are there? Well, there's fucking none. I'm not that arrogant that I think that James Hanning is going to write a book about my life. He wrote about Glenmore Care, but Glenmore Care at that time was famous. I'm not famous. What was going on there? What were you actually, once you'd have got my life rights signed, say I'd have been, had the IQ of an Alsatian dog, like you judge me as, because I'm going to win this battle. I'm going to win it. By winning it, I mean the Daily Mail are going to win it against you people. You're not going to get anywhere near them. Why? Because I'm going to confess to the conspiracy. There's a conspiracy, and it's wrong. I think it's illegal. I think the three of us should go off to prison. Because I think it's illegal. It's a decent newspaper. It's never done anything wrong. And the BBC entered into the conspiracy too. Conspiracy to get money out of the day under false pretenses. All of us are involved. All of us should go off to prison right now. How much was James Hanning's involvement? What did he know about it? Now, he had been involved with the Priory. He wanted to speak to Mark Collins about me. Mark Collins was the director of the Priory, who I saw over this long period of time. He spoke to my bank manager. He spoke to the press office of the bank to try and get old bank accounts that I was willing to hand over to them. I got one box. They ended up not wanting it. Oh, I know, it was the wrong year or some shit like that. They didn't want what I got. But I got them. I have them here. So he helped me get them. James Hanning also then spoke to my accountant. So where's this book? Is this book still going on? Was this all wanted? He also helped me write this 70-page affidavit. Now, when it came to signing it, the affidavit was altered. I apparently wrote in, I did all this illegal stuff. It was hilarious. So I took it out and went along to another lawyer, got him to sign every page and said, I'm going to sign this as an affidavit. So that's all witnessed. And then went to the other guy, signed the affidavit, the other lawyer. Then we went to meet Claire Hicks of the BBC. I was told that this was a coincidence. They're just there. But I think, presumably, the affidavit was for Claire Hicks, was for the BBC. Now, this is all blagging. This is blagging. But they mustn't blag. It's illegal. Well, bitches, then. You need to go to prison. Because what you're doing is illegal, yeah? So, at this point, you see what they've done. They've asked me to enter into a conspiracy against the Daily Mail. I've agreed to it out of fatal attraction. I lost my boyfriend, who I saw the Daily Mail as. And then they've decided that they will kick me out of the party and yet carry on using me and yet kick me out of it, if you know what I mean. It's weird. It's weird. You won't benefit. You won't benefit from this, bitch. You're the fall guy. But hang on, I invented the conspiracy to start with. Well, I didn't invent the conspiracy, but I was in with it right from the start. And yet they're like, oh, but you're not in it anymore, but you'll carry along in it. And then Johnson goes off to the court. He goes off to the court and he says, right from the, as well as saying he's not being paid, he said, this is horseshit, and this is what they think of the judges. Horseshit, horseshit. He said to the judge, firstly, I didn't get paid for this, they do it all for free. Was Sir James Hanning doing it all for free too? I was a question mark there. Everyone's doing everything for free. Whereas I'm the only wanker that does things for free, which is why I've got the black mould and the mice and the rented accommodation, like 20-year-old. I'm the only muppet that does anything for free, boys. Come on. Anyway, so then also he said to the judge that I threatened and abused him right from the get-go. These are bad people. As soon as I approached them, they just told me to get lost and said, yeah, get lost or I'll do this to you, and then abused me as well. Said the word fuck to me. Yeah. Or whatever the abuse was. When instead of that, I was busy helping you guys. Busy helping you. So sick. Anyway, so they, James Hanning did all this. So I don't know. At that, there's so many dinners at the Ivy. I mean, I was getting highly addicted to Lavender Lady cocktails. They went and took Lavender Lady cocktails off the menu. So then I was having to get them to make them up, especially for me. So anyway, they, there was a meeting with Claire Hicks from the BBC, James Hanning and this book about me. I said to him, what will the book be called? So the affidavit was supposedly for this book about me. I said, what will the book be called? And he said it would be called Born Victim. I didn't like the idea of this. So can't it be something a little more sexy or glamorous or something? I didn't really like it. But then I didn't like it when Hodder and Stoughton said my book will be called Searching for Daddy. You know, and it will be a misery memoir. I didn't think it was going to be a misery memoir. I thought it was going to be story of a journalist. How somebody goes from kids' home to become a journalist. Nope, they wanted a full sexual abuse details. So I was used to this. So I assumed the affidavit was for this book, this David Cameron style book. But I believe now, God, I seem so thick in this story, that it was for Claire Hicks. But it was full of horseshit that they had added in. And they did the same to Gavin Burrows. There's all this horseshit that I did all this stuff that I didn't do. I would never have signed an affidavit. Now, there's even a witness to this, Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler. I had sent him, because you can send these people things on JPEG. I've shared this before. I won't share it again. But he's a lawyer, you see. So I was, and also Giovanni Di Stefano. He's a lawyer. He's in prison. I had these two lawyers. Giovanni Stefano's now out. He's being on my... you can see him. I did an interview with him recently below. So I had him, so I sent him the affidavit. I sent to Bianchi. They were looking over, and they were both saying the same thing. It's not an affidavit. And then I sent them the forged one. I said, look what they've done, with the things marked out of what they've done. And they said, just keep away from them. But I don't know why I couldn't keep away from them. It was weird. And I know Michael Gillard's asked that same question. And I think it was just basically the Lavender Lady cocktails and the Ivy. I just thought, fuck, I want to go and sit in the Ivy. It's lush. It's lush. They have steak, they have these cocktails. The decor is 30s style. It is a nice place to be. And I just think it was the Ivy, actually. I just wanted to get my little ass in there. When I sat down, Claire Hicks started insulting me, saying all these bullshit things. I thought, what the fuck is going on? So it was a setup, that whole thing. It was a setup. It was a setup. I think they wanted that affidavit for the BBC, but it was a bullshit affidavit. So the BBC enter into conspiracy. I then sent a letter to Claire. Said, don't speak to me like that. I have delayed reactions. I said, don't speak to me. Don't abuse me. I said, I've worked, as a journalist all of my life. Nearly all of my life on Fleet Street, and sent us a byline, sent her my books, my traditionally published books. She was really abusive. Next thing, James Hanning takes me out to dinner on the river in Blake's, really nice, candle lit, and he says to me, "Oh, the BBC." Now, why was he taking me out to dinner? I guess I don't care as long as I get taken out to dinner. I don't give a shit why. So I went along, and he says, "Oh, the BBC, but it's not Claire Hicks. It's someone else." But actually, it was Claire Hicks. So I was lied to. Now, did James Hanning know about that, or was he totally innocent? Was he paid to have dinner with me, or was he just doing it for free? Who paid for the food and the drink and the cocktails? Going forward, then we met each other, Kew Gardens Cafe. This again was supposedly for the book he was writing on me. The book that does it exist? If it does, and you put out a book that is based on a doctored affidavit, I'm afraid I will sue. I'm afraid, boys, I've got the proof. Now, I've got the proof. Giovanni Di Stefano. James Hanning said to me the other day, he can't practice law, so he can still advise me, guys. So he also had the proof. He had the real affidavit sent to him, then the fake one. So it's recorded in emails. And it's recorded in emails to Kent Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler. It's on the J Bay record. So that's two lawyers, albeit in prison. So what you have to do if you're working class, sadly. But what I mean is you can't just ring up David Sherborne and then act as if you fought Murdoch and aren't you the feisty little lady. You can't do that when you're working class. You don't have David Sherborne on speed dial. He can't fight for you, and you can't claim that it's actually you that's fought. It's David Sherborne that's fought. So when you're working class, you have to actually fight for yourself. It's a lot harder. But then it makes you harder. It makes you stronger. It makes you more of a woman. Yeah. So going back to Hanning and the Blakes, that was when he said it was a whole different outfit. But it wasn't a different outfit. It was Claire Hicks. Then I did the interview with BBC, and I was abused. So the BBC have been involved in this since 2016. In 2016, they paid for me. Now, stupid as they are, they've left a paper trail with that. Oh, don't worry, boys. I've got the photocopies of the whole thing. They stupidly paid for it straight from BBC accounts to Secker Hall Hotel. I've got the paperwork for it. It's not at my home. Don't bother coming round burgling me. Why are they spending license payers' money? They wanted me to go to Paul's house, which was in Mildenhall, and to pick up my Daily Mail remittances from there in a box. The BBC paid for me to do that. Paid for me and my son to stay at Secker Hall. It's a 5-star hotel with a swimming pool, indoor swimming pool. It's gorgeous. We had the weekend there, all paid for by you, the license payer, to get at the Daily Mail remittances. I'm just going down my thing. Okay, so when they asked me to be interviewed by the BBC at the Petersham Hotel, they said, this is your chance to get over the story of Sienna Miller, who had accused me of making me kill her child. Fact, I'd only been rung up by Rebecca Brooks after there was no child, because there were 2 male reporters sitting outside a pregnancy termination clinic. This wasn't carried out in a bubble, and if I hopefully get the chance in court, Chris Ferrer and Nick Parker were involved. Indeed, Nick Parker was outside the clinic. I now have this on record by 2 sources, that it was Lloyd from TDI using somebody called Susie from TDI. Yet Sienna Miller announced to the world, I made her have an abortion. I fell for Hanning saying that this was now my chance and allowed the BBC to film me, and ended up having a nervous breakdown when he wouldn't believe a word I said and started grilling me like I was a poor unfortunate Muslim in Guantanamo Bay, and they had to call the BBC doctor Robin to treat me. Apparently, this film producer, filmmaker, couldn't even consider the possibility that I had not done this, that it had been somebody else, even though in the back of Nick Davis' book, Hack, it lists the PIs of Fleet Street and what they do. Under my name, it says Humid. Under other various people's names, it says doing these things around Sienna Miller. Journalists were doing hooky calls just as they were phone hacking. It's not rocket science to pick up a phone. I have become an easy target. Johnson is invested in making out everything nasty and dirty on Fleet Street. It was down to Christine Hart. I'm going to request from my lawyer that all the emails from Radford's department, also copying in BBC shareholders to these emails, goes to the highest point in the BBC. Then I go on. It's very hard when you've been very hurt and upset to keep to the point. And I know Private Eye said, oh, rambling YouTubes. Let's see you guys stick to the point when it involves you, when you're very sad and upset over events. But I'm sure there's journalists out there interested in this that can put it in a book, that can put it coherently. Not saying I'm not coherent, but I'm very upset about all this. This has ruined my entire life. And they act as if, it doesn't matter, bitch. Don't you know your place? You're just poor white trash. I mean, they don't have that saying. Supposedly don't have the saying over in England. Just have it in America. But it is the BBC, the press, the media really hating